Mr Chairman.
Gareth Hughes.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Kia ora, ngā mihi nui kia koutou, kia ora. I just want to stop and reflect on what Easter Sunday means to me. I'm not a Christian member, and we've had a bit of a to and fro just before. But for me, it was waking up with a sense of excitement, and it wasn't just the chocolate eggs you knew you were going to get. It was the sense that it had a sense of family, of being a different day, where you actually were at home with your family, and you knew all your friends when you were a kid growing up were at home with their families, that they were probably doing the same things you were, sitting around the lounge in your pyjamas, maybe eating hot cross buns, and then you're going to go do a great Easter egg hunt. As a father, this is one of the best moments I've had with my children, is inviting around the other kids from school so they can go around looking for eggs in their back garden. These are the things we're losing if we see a section of our population who, let's be frank, will be working in the retail sectors or other areas. They're the ones going to be missing out on these family experiences. And with only 3.5 days in this country where shop trading hours are protected, it's a big loss. It's a big loss of only 3.5 days. I want to point out the irony that right now the Swedish Parliament is negotiating and legislating to remove their working hours to 6 hours a day. We've fallen down the wrong track as a country in the last couple of decades. Because what's happened is, as we've progressively slipped down the world's economic rankings, we've had to work harder, work faster, but instead what we're not doing is working smarter. We're slipping down those rankings, yet Kiwis work some of the longest hours for some of the lowest wages, and we still pay some of the highest cost of living in the developed world. When you look at the economic literature coming out of the OECD, we have a 20% productivity gap with the OECD average. They measure, if you looked at our other economic settings, such as the ease to set up a business in New Zealand, we should be 20% above. So it's called the productivity gap. And the problem is we haven't worked smarter as a country. And this is another classic example where there's a misguided notion, if we just work more hours longer during the day, we're somehow going to be more wealthier as a country. In fact, it's the reverse, because the longer and less smarter we work, the poorer we get as a nation. So what the government's done in classical national style, there's been 10 attempts over the last 19 years to achieve this. What they've decided to do is move in this direction. Obviously, there's been considerable pressure from certain lobby groups to get this legislative outcome we see tonight, but they've kicked it to touch and kicked it to the councils. Yet another example where this government reduces the powers of councils, the democracies of our councils, sees more of the powers go into these undemocratic CCOs, yet they're quite willing to lump them with further responsibilities. So under this legislation, what's going to happen is councils, all dozens and dozens of them, are going to have to consider and go through their own expensive processes to work out whether they should implement this as a bylaw. What we've seen repeatedly in the past in this country is these bylaws have been judicially reviewed and subject to legal challenges. I have no doubt we'll see this again. So, Mr Speaker, what we see in one hand is a metaphor for the not smart economic practices and philosophies this country's gone down that has seen us slip down the rankings, that have seen Kiwis languish in terrible poverty and have seen a poorer New Zealand. But we also see a classic political example where the government's quite happy to kick responsibility and risk to local councils at the same time as they're bagging them. I'm proud that all of the Green Party caucus will be voting against this legislation. We are pro-worker. We are pro those family experiences, and we should be making Easter Sunday a public holiday, not weakening the shop trading hours protections that we currently have. But also we need to work smarter as a country. We can't keep racing on this treadmill but falling behind. It's a dumb way to run an economy. We need to think smarter, and we should be looking at some of the examples from the Nordic countries. It's not just lesser working hours, so there's more productivity packed into those hours. It's also looking at some of their paid parental protections. It's about looking at the way we run these low-value commodity-based exports, which drive down our national average. There's a limit to how many cows we can cram on paddocks in tourists we can cram into field, and there's no limit to IP, software, technology, patents, services. And this is the smarter option, and this is what the Green Party are advocating. Weakening workers' rights with this legislation isn't the answer.
Now, I let the member run, but I do want to warn members where we are not going to have a general labour relations economic debate. We're having a specific debate on the clauses of this bill, and now this warning has been issued, I will terminate members' speeches who don't get it. Ian, please go away.
Thank you very much.